Welcome back to the Illinois Fighting Illini Dynasty. I'm your host, Jay Shoob, and we got another great video for you guys today. It is the off-season. We will be transitioning from Season 4 on over to Season 5. As always, the off-season videos, a lot of content to get to, a lot of stuff happening. I promised you guys this was going to be an exciting off-season, and I will deliver that promise. Hope you guys will enjoy this video. As always, we'll keep a good pace here, a lot to cover, a lot of great content, and let's get going. So David Diehl just completed his 4th season as the head coach of the Illini football program, and it has been a massive success. 9-4 in his first 2 seasons, a 12-2 season with a Big Ten championship and a Rose Bowl in year 3, and then this past season in year 4, 11-2 with another Rose Bowl victory. It has been quite the tenure so far at Illinois for Coach David Diehl at his alma mater. In his 4 seasons, a 41-12 total record, 28-9 in Big Ten play, 1 Big Ten championship, 6-4 versus rivals, 12-6 versus top 25 teams. The most impressive, in my opinion, 8-2 versus top 10 teams. David Diehl always has his teams show up in the biggest games. And then a 3-1 bowl record with 2 Rose Bowl victories, as mentioned. So it has been quite the successful tenure for Coach Diehl. So now moving on to the coaching carousel. This is always very interesting to follow every offseason. And we'll get started by the Florida Gators firing Dan Mullen. And just like in real life, Mullen was fired. And look at that, they offered Coach Diehl the job. But of course, David Diehl's not going anywhere. He's an Illinois alum. He is here to stay and win a national championship at Illinois. But look who the Gators went out and hired. Ryan Walters, our former defensive coordinator, was hired to be the new head coach of the Florida Gators. Unbelievable. For some reason, I had missed that Ryan Walters was hired as Texas Tech's coach last season. After leaving, we had to fill our defensive coordinator position. It was quite a surprise when Ryan Walters went elsewhere. And I just didn't realize he went to Texas Tech, goes 11-2, wins the Big 12, and now he is at Florida. Unbelievable. Speaking of Florida, in real life, their head coach, Billy Napier, he was fired in this dynasty from Penn State. So what does Penn State do? They offer Coach Diehl the head coaching job. We decline, and they're going to hire Eric Chenandier from North Texas. So very interesting. That's a Big Ten job right there, and a rival of ours in this dynasty, Penn State, hiring Chenandier after firing Billy Napier. Very interesting there. A down year for Penn State last season. Virginia Tech, they fire their guy, offer us the contract, we decline, and they hire Sean Clark from Appalachian State. So Virginia Tech gets the App State coach, and then Stanford, Skip Holtz, was fired from there. Sure enough, they offer us the job. I think you guys get the point here. We're not going to Stanford. And they hire Brian Harsin to a 5-year contract. So Brian Harsin, he goes to the Pac-12, and he is the new head coach at Stanford in this reality here, in this dynasty. And then Rutgers, I thought this was interesting, another Big Ten program. They fire their head coach, Phil Longo, and guess who is the new head coach there? That's Tommy Rees. Tommy Rees, the previous head coach at Vanderbilt, he is now the head coach at Rutgers. So how about another Big Ten job? Northwestern, they fired their coach, who was there for 1 season, and then they hired Jeff Knowles. And then how about Oklahoma State? I thought this was pretty funny. Yes, that is not a typo. They hire Mike Gundy to a 5-year contract. Mike Gundy, obviously in real life, is the coach. He was fired in this dynasty, and then they hire him back. So, very funny stuff there. You love to see it. Love this game. The coaching carousel, always get a kick out of it. So you can see here the Big Ten coaches. Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. He's not going anywhere. He got a 6-year extension. He got Michigan to the Big Ten championship game this past season. So, good extension there for Michigan. They've arguably been the best program in the Eastern Division so far in this dynasty. And then Scott Frost. The defending national champions Nebraska Cornhuskers give a 5-year extension to Scott Frost. Yes, in this reality, Nebraska fans, Scott Frost led you to a national championship in this dynasty. Keep in mind, we started this in 2014 there on the graphic. That was year 1. Nebraska, 3 double-digit win seasons, a Cotton Bowl victory, 2 Big Ten championships, and then a national championship for Nebraska. Unbelievable there. Northwestern's on their 3rd coach now in 3 different seasons. They are playing head coach roulette right now. Clark Lee was fired. Knowles is the new guy. We'd cover that. Shenandoah to Penn State. We already covered that one. And then Purdue, Jeff Brom gets an extension there. If I'm not mistaken, I thought he got one last year, so I guess he'll get another extension. So a kind of a down year, only went 7-6 last year, but Purdue gets an extension. They had a big upset over Illinois last year against us. That was one of our 2 losses. And then, of course, Tommy Rees, the new head man there at Rutgers. As far as the coordinators, Jerry Azzanaro, our defensive coordinator, of course, he was the replacement for Ryan Walters, who's now the head coach at Florida, the head coach at Purdue in real life, by the way, in case you didn't know that. But anyways, Jerry Azzanaro, in this dynasty, our defensive coordinator, we gave him a 4-year extension. He coordinated the number 1 defense statistically last year, number 2 in points allowed in the entire country. And he gets a well-deserved 4-year extension, so you love to see that. So now moving on to players leaving, and yeah, this was tough. Jacob White and Wesley Lynch have announced they are intending to transfer because of playing time, and I don't really blame them. Jacob White, first of all, he's buried on the depth chart at wide receiver. He was a very good recruit as a true freshman. I thought that he could potentially be a good player in a couple years or so. We redshirted him last year. But with the way receiver is, we can only promise that he could play more than 3 games, play 3 games at max, and he's going to leave to Washington. And then Wesley Lynch. This one kind of stings a little bit because Wesley Lynch, yes, we did redshirt him, but you see he's a 76 overall player as a freshman. And there's a good chance he could play a bit of games this year. So Coach Diehl promised him he'd probably play in at least 9 games, and he says that he still wants to go somewhere else. That one stings. We've been trying to build up corner because that position is very important in this game. You can also move corners to safety as well, which helps boost their rating, boost their development. And yeah, that one's going to hurt the depth there a little bit, especially after losing 2 corners this offseason, as we're going to get to here in a minute. But anyways, now on to the seniors that are leaving. We're going to start with Pfeiffer Griffin. Always great to honor the seniors. It's something I love doing every offseason. Pfeiffer Griffin was our left tackle last season. We moved him over from right tackle to left tackle. And you can see there, he did a decent job there filling in as a redshirt senior. Daniel Edwards. Speaking of corners that are leaving, we lose a couple of them right here. Daniel Edwards, the first one, a true senior. He is the only guy along with Prince Green who have started all 4 years of this dynasty. He was thrown into the fire as a true freshman when he was not ready to play Power 5 football, but we had to. That was a position that was very shallow at the beginning of this dynasty, and you could see he did a very good job. I think the best way to describe Daniel Edwards is consistency with those numbers there. And he will be leaving, not necessarily a guy that's going to be in the NFL, but we're going to miss him. And then Prince Green, you can basically call Prince Green and Daniel Edwards, they're basically like brothers, the way that they came up and were thrown in the fire together at the beginning of this dynasty in year 1. Prince Green, he was a little bit more flary, I guess you could say, than Daniel Edwards. Prince Green had his moments. You could see his junior season in 2016, he had 11 TFLs, which is very good. Interceptions, he had 4 of them in his final 2 seasons playing corner. And then 5 pass deflections. He's a guy that I think got a lot better his junior and senior seasons. And he had a ton of experience, so definitely going to miss Daniel Edwards and Prince Green. Again, 2 guys that started a lot of football for us at corner, but aren't going to be NFL caliber players. Jerzon Newton. It is criminal that he is not going to be drafted in this series here, but look at his senior season. He won the Lombardi Award, 24 TFLs, 16 sacks. You want to talk about stepping into the role and filling in the void of players that we've left in the past in this dynasty, like Keith Randolph. Jerzon Newton had a Keith Randolph-esque senior season with those 16 sacks, led the NCAA, of course. We are going to miss him at defensive tackle. In his position, Illinois has pumped out a lot of production from. And now moving on to Reggie Love. Love, speaking of positions, Illinois has pumped out production from in this dynasty, running back as well. All of our running backs seem to do well in our system. And you could see last year was the first season that Reggie Love really got his opportunity to step up and be basically the 3-down back. And he got over 1,000 yards. He just barely clipped it, which is good for him. And he was also very consistent. We saw flashes of potential from him when he was a sophomore and junior. And that's why I was really excited for his senior season, because I knew that he was going to get a ton of carries, and he delivered. And we are going to miss him for sure. Trevon Riggins, another senior defensive tackle. Trevon Riggins is another guy that I think is going to be overshadowed by Jerzon Newton. He got a lot of playing time as well as a senior. You could see it 6 TFLs, 3 sacks. He also had a forced fumble as well this past season. But when you're lined up right next to Jerzon Newton, you're not really going to get the spotlight. So we're going to miss those two guys as seniors at defensive tackle. At right tackle, Blaze Sparks, he moves on. He started there 1 season as a senior. Kevin Tyler, we talked about this in the recap video last week, and Kevin Tyler had 18 pancake blocks, which is insane, at right guard. He's not getting drafted. I think with the way that he played as a senior, he probably has a chance to potentially be an undrafted free agent in the NFL if he continues that play. So we were excited to get that production out of him in his senior season at right guard. Hugh Robertson, another unsung hero of the Dynasty. He's been the punter all 4 seasons here. We're going to miss him. Very quietly, solid player, always got the job done for us. You could see punts down inside the 20 at the very bottom there. He had 13 of them in his 4-year career here as the punter. So I've been happy about that, and we're going to miss Hugh Robertson. Always got to give a tip of the cap to those special teams guys. Deuce Spann. Deuce Spann, what a rocky career that he has had here at Illinois, from very high promise, a very high ceiling, to a virtually season-ending injury this past year with his torn pec. Deuce Spann was a guy that we saw flashes of potential when he was just a freshman and sophomore in seasons 1 and 2. In season 3, we made the move to put him in over Isaiah Williams at quarterback. And Deuce Spann is really the guy. He's really the main reason why Illinois won the Big Ten Conference last season in season 3. And that move is forever going to be goated in this dynasty, because I do not believe that Illinois would have won the Big Ten last year without Deuce Spann coming in at quarterback. And you can see his numbers there: 11 passing touchdowns, 4 interceptions last year. And then this year is a little bit of a different story. He got off to a great start. It looked like this team was destined to potentially repeat as Big Ten champions, even with all the lost players around him. But he got hurt, and he had a rocky Rose Bowl in his finale, but we're going to miss him. He's not getting drafted, but he's another guy that I think could easily find a spot on an NFL roster. James Frenchie Jr. You want to talk about a player that really stepped it up and really blossomed late in his career as an upperclassman. That was James Frenchie Jr. Didn't really see a whole lot of production until his senior season. He basically filled in the shoes of Kyron Cumbie as our main slot receiver, our main target out of the slot. And those are pretty hard shoes to fill there, but James Frenchie Jr., he had some very clutch catches. I think that's what really surprised me about him, is that he had a lot of clutch catches last year. Dylan Rosaic was a backup linebacker. Josh Kreutz, a guy at center, not necessarily going to be an NFL guy, but he was very solid. His strength was pass blocking, which is what we really needed, and I think he delivered. He was a starter his junior and senior year. Max Rosenthal, another fullback. We don't really use our fullbacks that much in this system, if at all, but Max Rosenthal was our starting fullback all 4 years of the Dynasty, even though he rarely saw the field. And that'll do it for our senior class. Gonna miss those guys, especially Deuce Spann and Jerzon Newton, 2 of our best players on last year's team. They move on. And yeah, I kind of hinted at this, but no players drafted. And believe me, that is criminal, because if this game was realistic, if this algorithm was realistic, Jerzon Newton would be a day 1 or day 2 prospect at the very least. But officially, we have no players drafted this year, which is kind of sad. It is the first year in this dynasty, believe it or not, we have not had a player drafted. We had Marquez Beeson last year, Luke Ford in year 2, and Kendrick Green in year 1. So unfortunately, that's going to be the case there. But As far as other teams' draft results, how about Michigan? Moten and Morant, both the starting safeties for Michigan, they were tough against us. They really gave Dewspan and Samari Collier some problems in that game against them last year. They both go in the second round, not surprising there. Nebraska, the defending national champions, not really a whole lot of drafted players for a team that just won the national championship, but they still do have 5 guys go in the draft. Northwestern, Cam Porter, the running back, we saw him. They played really well against us. He gets drafted. Notre Dame, another team that we faced at the beginning of the year. Mills, a defensive tackle. Baker, the left tackle. And then Mitchell, the corner. All 3 of those guys are first-round picks, but I would say that most of those guys, especially Mills, we were able to hold in check. So we did a good job in that game against Notre Dame. Penn State, talk about a team that underachieved. This is part of the reason why Billy Napier was fired, was because this team underachieved with the talent that they had. Curtis Jacobs, Enzo Jennings, Keandre Lambert-Smith, Tyler Nicholas, all these guys just made great plays. All those guys played really well against us in these games we've played against Penn State. And I'm not surprised to see them all get drafted very high. Texas A&M, our bowl opponent, Diehl gets drafted in the first round. And then Haynes King, we really shut him down. He is a first-round pick at quarterback, but this Illinois defense made him look like a 7th-round pick, if you ask me, in that Rose Bowl. So very interesting stuff per usual. Unfortunately, we have no transfer requests, but that is not a big problem because we are going to be bringing in some good players. A perfect transition into recruiting, if you ask me. We're going to start here with Paul Burke. There's only a handful of guys that Illinois is really looking to go after this year in the final offseason cycle here. Paul Burke is a guy out of Michigan. Not a major priority, but we don't really need any linebackers. He is from Michigan, which we want to be a pipeline state. So we're going to put a little bit of effort into trying to get him. Trey Tyson, one of the 2 guys we're going to go very heavily after this offseason in recruiting. Trey Tyson, we've been in a battle with Boston College, Toledo, Penn State, and Vanderbilt all season long for him. It has been a nail-biter. He is a 5-star prospect out of Okeechobee, Florida, also a pipeline state. If he commits, he would be our first 5-star prospect, and he's a guy that could start right away in this dynasty. So we're putting a lot of points into him, as well as Blake Moyer. Same can go for him. He is a 5-star player, an athlete. He can play quarterback. And that is exactly what Illinois envisions him being. We have been neck and neck all season long with Mississippi State to land him. Those are the 2 schools that he is considering. And you can see why Illinois loves him a lot. Look at that speed, 86 speed, 91 acceleration, and then at the bottom there, 81 throw power and 83 accuracy. Those are pretty rare numbers. And he is a guy that could immediately be an impact player in our system. So we are going after him. And Illinois is praying all the recruiting points and effort that Illinois has put into Blake Moyer and Trey Tyson pays off, and they can land at least one of what would be their first 5-star prospect to commit to Illinois in this dynasty. So let's find out who we got. Trey Tyson and Blake Moyer have committed to Illinois. The Illini get both of their top targets, and this is massive. Absolutely massive. Illinois lands 2 5-star prospects, the first 5-star players that Coach Diehl has recruited to Champaign are Trey Tyson and Blake Moyer, and both of those guys have a pretty good chance to start right away. Kelly Clark is the only other guy that committed. We didn't really go that hard after him, but Illinois already filled out a cherry on top to an amazing recruiting class, and these 2 guys are going to put us over the top, that is for sure. Illinois is extremely excited to land Blake Moyer. He is the future, that goes without saying. He's a guy that is basically what they believed a more refined version of Kenton Peoples, a more refined passer with the same running ability as Kenton Peoples. So we are excited about that. And then Trey Tyson at offensive tackle, the number 1 tackle in this class, a 5-star out of the state of Florida. It is the perfect match. He is a pipeline recruit, and he's a guy that will very likely start at probably right tackle day 1 next season. Very excited about that. These are the types of guys Illinois wants. Other guys that Illinois didn't really heavily pursue, Martin Ellison, the quarterback. We already got a litany of quarterbacks coming in this year. He goes to Purdue, so we might see him later on in this dynasty. Bryce Smith, same situation here. Look at all those defensive tackles we brought in. He's a good player out of Illinois, but unfortunately he goes to Wisconsin. Not really a big deal though. And then Paul Burke, the guy that we kind of threw a flyer on, he goes to North Carolina. He's out of Michigan, which we want to make a pipeline state, but not the end of the world there. And looking at our recruiting class, Illinois has the number 2 ranked recruiting class in the country. Man, I am so excited about this recruiting class. There are a lot of guys that I think, actually probably several guys that I believe are not going to be redshirted and could potentially see the field as true freshmen in this class. You could see 2 5-star prospects. We have a handful of 4-star prospects as well. A lot of those guys I'm very excited about. And then some pretty solid 3-star players as well. This is a recruiting class that is definitely a program-changing one. It's, of course, a number 2 class in the entire country, something that Illinois has not done ever in this dynasty. It's the highest-ranked recruiting class, and all the success that Coach Diehl has built so far at Illinois is starting to pay off here on the recruiting trail. This is national championship-level players right here. And some of these other schools, Texas was the only school that had a better class than us. They got 2 5-stars. Nebraska right behind us with a number 3 ranked class. Texas A&M, our bowl opponent, up there as well. Michigan is number 6. Notre Dame 7. A lot of teams that we've been facing in this dynasty. Wisconsin, if you could see, they've got a lot of quality players. They got 2 5-stars, but only 16 total recruits. That's why they're down there. Rutgers, believe it or not, finishes with a 22nd ranked class. So a lot of good players going into the Big Ten Conference, which I'm excited about. And so now moving on to position changes. So this was kind of tough, and going back after I had already saved over this, I wish that I could go back and change some of these, but we decided to only assign positions to our athletes. The first one was Brock Bell, our true freshman coming in. Illinois doesn't really know what to do with Brock Bell because he could play quarterback, receiver, or running back. And he initially was going to be the backup plan at quarterback in case Blake Moyer did not commit. You could see his throw power is 86. He's got a hell of an arm and 78 throw accuracy. So this is a guy that can obviously be a good quarterback, but he's nothing compared to what Blake Moyer could be in terms of ratings. And after we landed Blake Moyer, we were kind of stuck on what to do with Brock Bell, but we decided that if he can play receiver or running back, we decided to go with the position he is most needed. And with Reggie Love leaving, we decided to put Brock Bell at running back. So he will move into there, and he will most likely be redshirted, but we will see. And he will be a guy that for right now we're going to play at running back, but not really sure. We might move him to receiver or potentially quarterback in the future. And then Joe Edmonds. I was very excited to get this guy. You can see the 95 speed. That is the main reason we have recruited Joe Edmonds. He can play running back or receiver, but in all honesty, it was not a doubt that Illinois envisions him as being a slot receiver, a speedy receiver in the middle of the field, kind of the Kyron Cumbie prototype. We need another player like that, and we are happy to bring him in with Joe Edmonds. So he will be a receiver, and he's a guy that has a really good chance to start right away. Look at those speed grades right there. He is the fastest player on the team as of now. He also has the highest agility rating as well. Of course, training results haven't come through yet, but look out for Joe Edmonds this year. He might get to play right away out of the slot. And then lastly, Blake Moyer. There was never a doubt once he committed here and we pried him out of his home state of Mississippi, Illinois envisioned him as the quarterback of the future when Ken Peoples is gone. Look at those throwing grades. Look at the speed. Look at the acceleration. He is going to be our quarterback of the future. So no hesitation there with Blake Moyer. So very excited about this new quarterback room. A lot of new faces there. And there's going to be more here coming up in a few minutes, as you guys will see. But I am very excited about the future of this quarterback room and all the young new faces. 3 freshmen brought in. I was very excited about that. So now the training results. Obviously, this is very important to see how our players progressed in their overall ratings going into next year. Darren Robinson, the strong safety, He is our highest graded player with a 94 grade. Very excited for Darren Robinson. He's a guy that had a pretty good season last year after kind of having some struggles coming in as a true freshman. He's a guy that's had a lot of experience. Ken Peoples, 91 grade sophomore. Man, he is a stud. He is an absolute star. He is, without a doubt, is one of our best players on the team, if not the best player on the team. So very excited about Ken Peoples. Samari Collier improved his grade to a 93 as well, but obviously Ken Peoples is the starting quarterback. The elusiveness rating, it's an 88 for him, man. He is so good, and I am so excited. The one knock on Ken Peoples' game is his accuracy, and that's something that he really needs to work on this offseason, as well as his ball control. So it would be nice to see Ken Peoples work on those skills, and it looks like he has over the offseason. Very excited about that. And then at running back, Josh McCray and Corey Black. Both of those guys improved their grades by 6 points. Lorenzo Carter, he was a true freshman last year. He is a guy that might see some time this year as well at running back. Always a position to look out for there. Wide receiver, I was hoping to see some guys maybe separate themselves here on the depth chart, because we are very deep at this position but don't necessarily have any top end talent. Patrick Bryant obviously is wide receiver 1. Kenny Rogers is a good player as well, but not a guy that really stands out. So it'll be interesting to see what Illinois does with their receivers this year. And then as far as tight end, Zach Anderson, a junior, he improves his grade by 4 points. He is the starter. Terrence Booker at left tackle. He is in a battle with Trey Tyson for the job coming in as a true freshman, but I think he will probably start at left tackle. He will be a new starter there. Brody Wisecarver only improved his grade by 3 points, which is kind of disappointing. Brody Wisecarver was a guy that came in. He was part of the very first group of freshmen in year 1 of this dynasty when Coach Diehl became the coach. And Wisecarver really hasn't turned into the player that we thought he would be. By this point, I thought he would be maybe a 94 grade player, an NFL caliber guy, but we shall see with him. He plays left guard, which of course is David Diehl's position when he played back in the day. So kind of disappointing to see the lack of development there with him, but he is the only guy that'll be returning as a starter on the offensive line. Justin Cook, he improves his grade by 87 points, or by 5 points. He will be the new starting center. And then Terry Townsend, look out for Townsend. Redshirt freshman, 83 overall. He is going to be an NFL player once Cook passes by. Very excited about that position there. Very quietly, very good talent there. Zachary Barlev improves his grade by 5 points. He will be the new starting right guard. And then Nate Manson, he improves his grade by 4 points. This was very interesting because he's a junior, but Trey Tyson might be coming for his job there. So he might lose his position he's been waiting to start at to a true freshman 5-star player. That'll be a battle to watch there at right tackle. And then Cedarius McConnell. He was the starter last year at left end, did a very decent job there. He's an 88 overall now. Ryan Williams at right end. This was a position, edge rushers, that Illinois was starting 2 new guys, a lot of fresh faces, and those guys did fairly solid. So we would look to see some improvement now that all these guys have had some experience so far. Keenan Norman, a guy to look out for. He's just a redshirt freshman, one of these studs from our previous recruiting class. He's an 80 overall, so he's a guy that I'm excited about for the near future. And then Mike Hughes, defensive tackle. We lose both Jerzon Newton and Trevon Riggins, but this is a position that I still think could be pretty good, especially with Mike Hughes. I think he's a guy that can have close to a Jerzon Newton-esque season as just a junior. He's a 90 overall player. He hasn't got to play a lot, but he has been an ace in the hole. And I've been waiting for Hughes to get his chance to finally start at defensive tackle. So very excited for that. I think he's going to have a great season, and he's just a junior. He will certainly be an NFL guy in my opinion. Calvin Hart. Man, Calvin Hart impressed me as the outside linebacker. So fun to play with, and Calvin Hart improves his grade. Patrick Coleman, 4th-year starter as well. He's an 88 now. Jermaine Mendoza doesn't get to play a lot, but he is the backup to Calvin Hart. Him and Thomas Parsons there at outside linebacker. They improve, of course. And then at corner, 2 starters from last season that left, in Prince Green and Daniel Edwards. So Wyatt Anderson, who had Some really flashy moments his freshman year. Didn't really do a whole lot last year, but he will finally get the chance to start at corner. And then Andrew Medlock and Anthony James. Probably Medlock, I believe, will be the guy that starts at corner. So not a whole lot of experience here at this position coming back. Of course, we lost Wesley Lynch to the portal, so that was kind of frustrating. We lose a little bit of depth there. And then safety. I think safety is easily our best and most deep position so far on this entire team. Cornelius Taylor returns, Tyler Strain, Quincy Bolden. A lot of those guys are really good players. At least one of them I hope will be an NFL guy. And then same thing at strong safety. Darren Robinson, our highest graded player. He had a great offseason. And then Joel Washington as well, another unsung player that could start a lot of other Power 5 schools. He improves his grade. Reggie Mathis, of course, he is a stud. He did not miss a single field goal last year. So there you have it, a lot to get to there. So now on to cutting players. Cutting players, always not the easiest thing to do, but this year we have to cut our roster size down to 70 from 75, so 5 players are going to have to go. And this was not necessarily the hardest year, in my opinion. I think I kind of knew what we had to do here. And we're going to start with corner. James Johnson, one of our recruits that we brought in at corner. He is from Michigan, which is a pipeline state, but you could see there he's just a 61 overall player. He's never going to see the field here on this team, unfortunately. And we're going to cut him. But with bringing in other Michigan players, I don't think it's a big deal that we lose a pipeline prospect there. And then likewise with Chaz Elliott, he's an Illinois guy, but just a 59 overall player. He's probably never going to see the field here, and we're going to cut him. So Chaz Elliott unfortunately goes. At wide receiver, this has been 2 years in a row now we've had to cut receivers. Just so many receivers we brought in over the last couple years. So now we're trimming it down here. Kelly Clark out of Bloomington, Illinois. I didn't even really recruit him, and he committed. So he's not really going to see a lot of playing time. You could see all those receivers there. Kelly Clark goes. And then running back, Fred McFarland, who was a guy that also we did not recruit. I was kind of surprised to see him commit, but he actually is a guy that I could see actually having some potential, and a guy that I don't necessarily want to cut, but I kind of had to. Again, I did not recruit him, but he's a guy that could play at other places for sure. And then lastly, one more player to cut. This was a mutual decision between Illinois and Samari Collier. Of course, Samari Collier is a 5th-year senior, but you guys know with this dynasty, I love to keep things real. And with the way college football is today, if this dynasty played out in real life, Samari Collier lost his job to a sophomore. He's going to look to play his 5th-year season somewhere else and be the starter, and he was a great player for us. He really, I think, did a good job coming in for Deuce Spann last season when he got hurt. He just unfortunately lost his job to one of the more talented quarterbacks in all of college football, and Ken Peoples. So Samari Collier will leave, and we will move on with that. So that trims the quarterback room down quite a bit. More on Samari Collier later, because the rumors are is that he transferred to another Big Ten program, which we will figure out here in a little bit. So now moving on to custom conferences. One of the more exciting things I promised you guys in this offseason video was going to be custom conferences. And I decided to go big here. Of course, we all know in real life that UCLA and USC are joining the conference in 2024. We're now 4 years going on to our 5th year into this dynasty, and it is time to add UCLA and USC to the Big Ten. I'm very excited about this, but of course, when you add those two schools, you have to change the divisions, and this is what I drew up. Yes, we are no longer doing the East and West. We are changing it up here. Illinois will now be in the Big Ten Central Division, and the remaining schools will be in the Coastal Division that are not in Illinois' side here. So you can see this is how I decided to do this. So of course in this game you cannot create the pod system, unfortunately. So the only thing you can do is create divisions, and when you add 2 more teams to make a 16-team conference, the thing you're stuck with is 2 divisions of 8. So with that being said, I decided to create the Big Ten Central Division and the Big Ten Coastal Division. And one of the things that I have been so frustrated with in this game is that we have not played Indiana or Ohio State in our crossover matchups with the Big Ten East teams. We've played every other East team except for Indiana and Ohio State, and of course Indiana is a rival of Illinois. And also Ohio State, obviously one of the biggest programs in the country. We have not played them yet. It's been something that I've been frustrated with. So you know what I decided to do? I said, screw it. We're just going to put Illinois in the same division as Indiana, Ohio State. So we're not going to play them every year. And I decided to make sure that these divisions were going to be relatively balanced. And I went off of what has happened so far in the Dynasty. And in the Dynasty, it is not like what is played out in real life, of course. But what has happened is Michigan has been a decent program in the East. Ohio State has been basically kind of like Texas in real life. They have really underperformed and haven't really done anything, but they're still Ohio State. Penn State's had a couple down years, one really good year. And I decided, you know what, I want to play those schools. I want to play the Michigan schools. I want to play Indiana. I want to play Ohio State every year. And of course, wanted to preserve the rivalries we already had. So I brought over Northwestern and Purdue over to the Big Ten Central. So that is our new division. We are going to play all those teams every single year now. So I'm very excited about that. Very, very excited. The only downside to this is that I had to cut off ties with Nebraska, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, a lot of these Big Ten West schools that we have built sort of a little bit of rivalry, a little bit of history with in this dynasty, especially Nebraska and Wisconsin. We have played some really good games against those two, and those two have arguably been the 2 best programs in the Big Ten in this dynasty besides Illinois are Wisconsin and Nebraska. Nebraska, of course, just won the national championship, and Wisconsin played for a national championship in season 2. So this was tough to do, but I think it is for the best, and I am very excited about playing these schools over here in the Central Division. And yes, the national championship last year was Nebraska versus UCLA. But, you know, hey, those 2 are division opponents now. Are they going to be that good every year? Probably not. So that division is pretty good, especially at the top. But it's not like we're not going to see any of those teams ever again. We're still going to see 2 of those teams every single year. So geographically, for those of you who like to see the map, this is how I drew it up right here. So you could see the schools that I put in the Central. And then the quote-unquote Coastal Division is the remaining Big Ten West schools, along with the California schools, and then Maryland and Rutgers over there on the Atlantic side. So I think not necessarily the most geographically sound, but it's the best that I could do, and I am very excited for this as far as Illinois in this new format. No protected rivals. So very, very excited about that. And now moving on here. So of course, with UCLA and USC leaving, had to add a couple teams to the Pac-12 to make sure they have 12 teams and set up a conference championship. So I added Boise State and San Diego State to the Pac-12, moved Boise over to the north, Cal to the south, so that'll be the new Pac-12. So we maintain the divisions there in the conference championship in a Power 5 league. And then lastly, this is just one quick thing I did was move James Madison over to the Sun Belt, which makes the Sun Belt even with 7 teams in each division. So a quick little add there. So that is the conference realignment. Very excited about how the new Big Ten is going to look. Very excited about the new schedule. We're going to get to that here in a minute. But first, let's cover redshirting players. Starting off with the quarterback position. Of course, with Samari Collier leaving the program and hitting the transfer portal, Ken Peoples is now the clear-cut QB1, and behind him are 3 true Buck freshmen who have not played a single snap yet. This QB room all of a sudden got very, very different and very, very young in a hurry. And Blake Moore, you can see, I thought about potentially redshirting him, but with his accuracy numbers there, he is just above and beyond Wayne Johnson and Shane Oliver there. And I really wanted to redshirt him with the potential of getting an extra year of eligibility with him down the road. But he's such a good player. Realistically, if he lives up to his full potential, he could be an NFL guy coming out as a redshirt sophomore or redshirt junior. So I'm not going to redshirt him, and we've decided that we're going to redshirt Shane Oliver instead. He is a fair notch below Wayne Johnson, so Shane Oliver is going to be redshirted. I think that makes the most sense. Wayne Johnson probably going to have a hard time starting early on in his career, but he will not be redshirted because with the way QB injuries work in this game, we might need him. But anyways, so moving on from quarterbacks, running back here, Brock Bell. This was tough because I wanted to redshirt him, but we put him at running back, and I don't necessarily think running back is the best spot for him, but we decided not to redshirt him because we could see him play a little bit. Might use him elsewhere. And then wide receiver, Joe Edmonds, another guy I was very, very close to redshirting, but Joe Edmonds with the speed there, of course you could see him and Marvin Pugh got the fastest speed grade on the team. And Joe Edmonds has the highest agility rating as well out of those wide receivers. So I was very close to redshirting Edmonds and putting Pugh as our slot guy this year. But I think we're going to roll with Joe Edmonds as a true freshman over Marvin Pugh. I think Joe Edmonds is just a little bit better of a player. I don't care that he's a true freshman. I think Joe Edmonds is going to be our slot guy this year. So he's not being redshirted. Very excited about that. At tight end, Ricky Ernst, of course. He's behind two true juniors, so we are going to redshirt him. That's going to give him a lot of eligibility as the guy that could be the starter here in the future. At left tackle, Trey Tyson. Did not move him to right tackle, which I should have done, but oh well, we're still going to start him there on the depth chart. And Trey Tyson is not going to be redshirted because he's going to likely play at right tackle as a true freshman. He's a 5-star player. Brandon Pennington, no surprise there. He's a developmental prospect. He's going to be redshirted. Sedarius McConnell is the starter there at left end. So Kevin McRae, another developmental guy, he is going to be redshirted. So he's not going to see the field for a while there. And then defensive tackle. This position was a little bit interesting because we start 2 defensive tackles on the field. We have 2 defensive tackles on the field at all times in our system. So depth is very much needed with this position, and Marcus Dixon is one of 3 freshmen that are going to be coming in as true freshmen here. So I decided that Marcus Dixon is the better of those 3 freshman players, and he might actually see the field a good bit here coming in because we rotate. So James Henderson and Billy Anderson are going to be redshirted. So Jonathan Sims and Marcus Dixon, we rotate those defensive tackles a lot, so he might see the field a little bit. He's not going to be redshirted. And then at corner, Jeff Garcia, Eric Wade, and Joe Thompson, all 3 of them. I thought about potentially not redshirting Garcia, but they are going to be redshirted. I forgot here when I recorded to show Garcia being redshirted, but all 3 of them are redshirted there. So there's a lot of guys in our secondary, including some of our safeties that can play corner. So I don't think it makes any sense not to redshirt some of these guys and give them some yearly separation there as far as eligibility is concerned. Now moving on to our schedule. I made you guys wait a couple minutes for this, but man, this is the reason why I decided to change the divisions up, because I love this schedule. First off, our non-con. We are going to open up against Coastal Carolina at home. So the Chanticleers will be our first opponent next year. Then we go at UCLA. Our first Big Ten opponent is going to be in Week 3. It'll be our second game of the season, and we are heading out west. The new addition to the Big Ten, the team that played for the national championship last year. We are going to play at UCLA to open up conference play. That is going to be hella exciting. And then Army will be our next non-conference opponent at home. One of you in the comments has been requesting that I play Army, so here you go. We have delivered. We are playing the Black Knights, a bye week, and then another thing, we are going to go at Florida State. So I asked you guys which team you wanted Illinois to do a home-on-home with starting this year, and you guys answered you wanted Florida State. So we're going to go to Tallahassee as our final non-conference opponent this year. Then Florida State is going to come play in Champaign next season. Very excited about this series. I think you guys picked a very good team. Very excited about this schedule so far. I think this is a great schedule already, and this is only 4 games in. And then moving on here back into Big Ten play. We're going to have Rutgers coming in to town. I don't know what it is about Rutgers, but we cannot seem to avoid them. They are our second crossover opponent from the new Coastal Division. So we are at UCLA, then we got Rutgers from the Coastal, and then we finally play our new Central Division opponents. Michigan State, we got them at home. We played them away last year in the crossover, so we get them at home. And then Michigan, they were also a crossover last year. They are now a division opponent, and we go away. So we go to play Michigan in the big house. Very, very excited about that. Same deal with Penn State. They were our cross-divisional rival. Now they are a division opponent. Penn State, we got them at home back-to-back seasons. Finally, Illinois is playing Indiana in this dynasty. For the first time, we are playing the Hoosiers, and we are going to Bloomington. Finally, excited about that. Purdue at home back-to-back years, and then again, finally, we play Ohio State, and we are going to the Horseshoe. About freaking time. So excited for that. And then we end the year at Northwestern, so that's one of the quirks of changing up the schedule and the divisions, is that we play some teams away 2 years in a row and home 2 years in a row, but it is worth the change up here. Very excited about this new division alignment and this new schedule. I love this schedule so much. This is arguably my favorite so far of this dynasty, and I cannot wait. The away games this year are going to be very, very exciting. And lastly, how about Samari Collier? I made you guys wait to see where he was going, and this is where Samari Collier is going. He's going to Ohio State. That is right. Samari Collier has decided he is going to transfer within the Big Ten Conference. He's going to be the starter in his final season of eligibility for the Buckeyes. And I'm not going to lie, he looks pretty good there in the scarlet and gray. So Samari Collier will have a chance to be the starter at a very big-time program. And yes, by the way, in case you didn't know, we head to the Horseshoe in Week 13. We are going to face Samari Collier. Boy, you love to see the storylines there. He's going to look to get revenge against the team that kind of promised him he would be the starter after Deuce Mann was hurt. And that promise was broken once Ken Peoples emerged as the future quarterback for Illinois. That'll be very fun. Hopefully Samari Collier is still playing and healthy at that point in the season. So that'll do it, guys. That is it for our off-season content. That was a lot to get to, I know it was, but hope you guys enjoyed the video per usual. Hope you guys are excited. I told you guys there would be some big changes, and I think that these changes are for the best, and I think these changes are going to make the season a lot more fun and exciting. I hate to cut the cord on playing teams like Wisconsin and Nebraska and Iowa, teams that we always play great games against and teams that we have built a little bit of history with in this dynasty and a little bit of rivalry with, but in my opinion, it's worth moving over to play some of these teams from the East, like Ohio State and Indiana, teams that we haven't played at all in this dynasty to this point, and then play teams like Michigan yearly that, again, I think it'll be really fun. And then adding USC and UCLA, of course, that's going to be fun as well. Very, very excited about this schedule. Very, very excited about this new division alignment. I think after 4 years of this format, I think it was a good time to change that up. And as far as the team going into next year, you guys kind of saw a glimpse of what the team's going to look like. And I think the team's going to be pretty good. I think this is a national championship contender. It goes without saying. That is the next step that we need to take in this dynasty. We've gotten to the Rose Bowl 2 years in a row. We've flirted with a #1 ranking. We have flirted with being right on the outside of playing for a national championship. And now it is time to finally get there and play for it all. Play for a national championship. For next season, of course, a lot of change as far as the quarterback room around Kenton Peoples. No more Samari Collier, no more Deuce Mann. So a lot of interesting storylines, but outside of the quarterback room, besides Ken Peoples, a lot of players are coming back next year, and I think this team's going to be pretty good. So once again, thank you all for watching. Leave a like for this video if you enjoyed it. I tried to keep a good pace and give you guys a good breakdown of what's going on this offseason. And as always, leave a comment. I love when you guys leave comments. That is what primarily motivates me to keep doing this dynasty, is whenever you guys comment, leave likes, tell me what you like about the dynasty, tell me what you're looking forward to seeing and all that stuff. As far as the next video, it will be the Season 5 intro video where we're going to preview the roster and sort of show you guys the finalizing of the roster and the starters and all that, because there is some decisions to be made there. But as always, this is the point where I take a good break here. I know I haven't been as consistent about posting videos as of late. It is hard to keep up with this channel sometimes, especially when we're doing other content. I'm sure you guys are aware of that, and I haven't really addressed that in this Dynasty for those of you who like these Dynasty videos. I know a lot of you only watch this Dynasty and don't really care much for the other college football content that we do, but the original purpose of this channel was to do the college football content and promote our podcast, which, by the way, if you haven't listened to that, go check it out. But just wanted to kind of give you guys an update on what's going on the channel and everything, and that there's a lot of work to do, and this obviously isn't a full-time job for either of us, so it is hard to be consistent sometimes with posting, and I've wanted to keep these Dynasty videos coming out consistently, but it's just been pretty hard to do lately. But as I just said, I'm going to take a break, give the Dynasty in this offseason a little bit of time to sizzle, build up the excitement, and get ready for next season, which will be pretty exciting. We are going to be competing for a national championship. I'm very certain about that. So, thank you guys for watching for the final time, and as always, have a great day.